This week has been tough, and we've learnt that in an instant, everything can change. We've seen landscapes we've known our entire life crumble. And we've learnt the power and force that nature holds. But we've also learnt the equal power and strength of community. It's been flooding for a week, and when we thought it was the biggest flood we've seen in years, another 860 millimeters fell, and overnight, everything changed. This is the biggest flood in recorded history, a once-in-a-thousand-year event. We have never seen a flood nearly as bad as this, but we also said that in 2017, and these common extremities have made us realize that the climate crisis is here. The raging creeks changed paths and swept away houses and filled entire towns. The soil was too full of water and mountains slid across the landscapes, moving boulders the size of houses and swallowing everything in their path. People clung to palm trees, climbed to their roofs, and dug their neighbours out from cars completely engulfed in soil. In our valley, no lives were lost, but in the wider community, some have not been so lucky. We woke up to find that the raging creeks and landslides took most of the roads and bridges. We checked on all our closest neighbours, making sure they were safe, and helped bucket out water from their houses. The creeks were far too dangerous for us to cross to check in with the rest of the community, but seeing the ferocious rivers, we worried about everyone. At this time, we had no idea that in the valley, people's houses had slid down hills and been buried with them inside, or that people had been buried in their car and would be stuck inside for the next 38 hours. Because the creeks are so raging and all the roads are broken, everyone is completely cut off from the world. There is no power or phone lines because they all washed away, and there's no mobile reception, so there is no way to call out for help, to receive food or medicine, or to leave. Rescue people haven't been able to get in, and we're all alone. Helicopters keep flying overhead, but they can't seem to land on the wet earth and slippery hills. Everyone is checking in on their neighbours and friends and making sure everyone is okay.
It's day 3 and the sun's out, but no one's got any power or anything, so we're going to go hike up to our uncle's place to see if he's okay. He lives right up the valley, and there's heaps of landslips up there. But we think everyone's fine, but we're just going to go see them and just check in on them. But we can't walk on the roads because they've all washed away and the creeks are dangerous, so we're taking the hill route and walking right around. But there's a landslip up here as well, which we're worried about. There's boulders the size of the houses.
Our neighbour's landslide tore from the highest cliff face to the bottom gully, passing just meters from their house. With it, it took trees and boulders and created a new waterfall. They heard the noise it made in the early morning, and it was terrifying. Cracking trees, massive boulders rolling, and churning water. With it, it took 2 lambs and their dog, but their other animals are safe. They are still searching for their dog and hope for it to come home. Our uncle and his family were okay, but the creek next to their house had split into two and torrented down their driveway. The house was an island in the centre of two ferocious streams, and their homemade fence was the only thing that stopped the water from flowing through their house and floating them away.
We made it back and our uncle's fine, so that's great. But this is what's left of the road between us. So everyone's okay up that valley. So I'm just hiking home and I'm gonna have lunch and then hike on to the next valley to check that our mates over on that side are okay, because they live quite close to the creek, so we're worried. But I think they'll be fine. But yeah, there's been helicopters going over all day. One came really close and looked like it was going to land, but I think maybe they were just checking the power poles, and someone said that the power might be back on this afternoon, so that's going to be a relief, because then our food won't be spoiled and then we'll have food.
After a big hike, we visited our friends who were fine. The water got to their steps and took their garden, and their neighbour's car got washed away so far downstream and was buried with rocks. While hiking, the community is so full of helpful hands, reminding us of how inspiring, selfless, and giving humans are. We ran into our friend Vandano, who, like most people in the valley, has so many stories to tell of the catastrophic flood.
We trekked up into the Hoot Mountains and we had to go through the waters, of course. There's just landslides everywhere. Roads are no longer roads. There's potholes, like 3, 4, 5 meters deep. Roads washed away. There's big gorges down through the roads, also, several meters, where now there's kind of the creek's running where the road was. But there's people stuck out there still. There was one particular house, it was standing under in a bit of a gully. The cliff has dropped away, the house has slid down the mudslide. You can't even tell there was a house there, it's just mud, debris, boulders. There were 2 people in the house at the time. One was buried from the upper lip down. His elderly mother was buried, luckily, in a bit of an air pocket. She had some tin and a bit of a mattress that kind of formed a bit of a protection by sheer luck, and they were buried for 2 days. A local, the neighbour, found them. They were able to get precise GPS coordinates and get a helicopter in. The army helicopter came in, and there were several hours of digging. The lady from next door has cuts all over her hands from just ferociously digging for hours and hours trying to dig these people out. They could hear the lady underneath. They knew she was alive.
Our uncle's donkeys got separated by the landslide. They are brothers and best friends. They were so happy to be reunited.
Oh, you missed each other. So because the power lines have been completely washed away, we've got no power, which is going okay, except that the electric fence that we normally attach to the pens, the duck pens at night time, aren't working, and last night a python got in and ate one of the boys. So now we're desperately trying to work out a way to electrify them for tonight, because otherwise we risk the snake coming back and eating more of his friends. So we're trying to find a way, but now I'm trying to... There's a massive huntsman. It's late at night and I am sleeping by my duck pen. I don't know if you can see all there. With all the ducks inside, every single duck, all 24 of them I think, are sleeping inside because their electric fence still isn't going because we still don't have power. And I'm scared the python's gonna come back. I tried to sleep, I set up a whole tent and then I went to get inside and it was completely moldy because everything is moldy. So I'm just sleeping on the ground instead because I can't let a python get these ducks. A python is quite literally going to have to sliver over me before it gets them. I've got the snake catcher here, which is our dad's invention. It's just a piece of pipe with an electrical cord through it, and you pull it and it tightens around the snake's neck, and then you can move the snake away. So if worst comes to worst, I guess I'll have to do that, even though it really spooks me out and I normally get Julie to do it, so I might go and get her. But hopefully the snake won't come. This is just precautionary. And the helicopters have stopped going over for now, so I guess that'll let me get a better sleep. You're okay. It's alright.
Some of the sheep fence was washed away, so we're moving to a safer paddock. But just as we are, the sheep are shocked by the changed landscape. The roads they once bounced along to run away for some mulberries have completely collapsed.
Come here! Hello, how are you? How are you? Oh, it's been scary, hasn't it? It's been scary.
Australia's white history is such a tiny fraction of this land's deep and long story, and it's hard to think that in the 60 years that our family has been so lucky to live on Bundjalung country, we've never seen anything like this. But in the last 5 years, these rainforests have seen 2 unprecedented fires, and now this. The SES hiked in and helicopter dropped some food, and the community is so thankful. More people live up even higher in the mountains, and there are so many crossings in between us that are completely washed away. The only way to get food across the broken roads is by excavator bucket and hiking it up into the valley. We watched the landscape change in one night, watching everything that has always been so sturdy and familiar just crumble away with the power of the weather. This has been our most confronting experience with the climate crisis yet. The community has been working together so beautifully, digging landslips by hand, hiking to check on everyone, and sharing food. It's so inspiring seeing the power of community and how by working together we can make so much change. With the widespread food shortages and being completely cut off from the world, everyone is craving fresh food. Luckily, some of the trees are still filled with fruit, so we're picking a basketful to hike up again to our neighbours high in the mountains. This is the biggest flood in recorded history here, but in our short lives living in these mountains, we've experienced the driest droughts in recorded history, unstoppable bushfires, multiple once-in-a-100-year floods, and now this. It's so strange to walk along tracks that were once so familiar. to look into the creek that we once bathed in as babies, where we knew every stone as well as our own skin, and everything has changed. It has made us realise the need for immediate change, the importance for systems to acknowledge and act against the climate crisis before it's too late. But this experience has also made us realise the power of humans banding together, how a small community can hold so much strength by working as one. And it has given us hope for the future, because if we can work as one, we can make meaningful change to work against the climate crisis and towards a regenerative future. For the past few days, we've been road building. Our neighbours have been so kind and have been digging the landslide by shovel. Honestly, the most digging was done by our 2-year-old neighbour and his toy shovel. It's so beautiful seeing the way that the community comes together in crisis. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have the ability, please see the list in our description for resources that need donations. There are many groups helping people get the food, medicine, and housing they need, as well as organisations preparing the land for more disasters and fighting against the climate crisis. And as always, we are so thankful to our patrons. We are so glad that every tree that we've planted is still standing strong. We thank you for all your support on this journey, and we're inspired to keep planting, cleaning the waste and debris, and regenerating the land. We see now more than ever the importance of planting trees.